Welcome to Let's Talk About Gay Stuff. Woo! We're the podcast where we talk about gay stuff and discuss the week in LGBT plus history. Yay! Woo! Mm-hmm. We're gonna talk about gay stuff.
All right, nope.
Oh, is that you? Are you giving us a run?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kendall put the final veto on any intro song.
All right. Well, we are Thomas.
Unless we have a listener who's like a really good songwriter or musician, and they can write us a nice song.
What's your name?
That's Tony who missed his cue.
And
Kendall.
All right.
Our executive producer is so mad at you for missing
what's going on.
They're like, don't interrupt. Stick to the script.
Come on, guys. All right. So this week we're going to talk about the week of
Although,
October.
wait, hold on. Remember?
Stick to the script. Wait, what?
Remember the last time we got together when you forgot your name? Thomas, Kendall, and you were just like Bambi looking like.
Well, it's okay because.
And we had to whisper, Tony.
When we were in New Orleans, I said, "We're Tony."
Yeah, I got the wrong name.
But then also when we were in New Orleans, I forgot Martha's name, and she's like, no, I have Alzheimer's. It's okay. Don't take it personally.
It's true. It's a
I'm going to start throwing that out when I don't know people's names.
And some people can get it as early as 40. Just turned 40.
You just turned.
Just saying.
Well, you beat the record because you've been talking about it for 2 years.
And I do have a family history.
That's why I'm actually worried. I was whispering to Spencer the other day. I'm like, I think he might actually have early onset.
Well, actually, the other day I was talking to my coworker and I kept like freezing on words. Like I'd be, I don't know, like tongue-tied / freezing. And that's also an indication. I'm like, oh my God.
And then you realized you were talking to yourself.
Was that on Monday, the day after we did Sunday Fun Day? Because that could be an explanation.
No, this was.
Oh, because you didn't have to work.
Thank you. I didn't.
You were off. That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I forgot.
Plus, I have coworkers that listen.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm kidding.
You were off. That's why it was Sunday Fun Day. Yep. I did the same thing. I forget the words, and I think it's sometimes too much. I stay up too late sometimes. All right, so
blame it on Tina.
Yes, no, not on Tina. I said something inappropriate the other day, and I realized that I'm like, that could come back to not on the podcast, which is odd. We say plenty of things. Anyways.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah. All right. What are we talking about? This week, we're reviewing the week of October the 27th through November the 2nd. And we'll discuss the raid on Harper's magazine, the passage of the Matthew Shephard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crime Prevention Act, and the dedication of the Statue of Liberty. This week is also Halloween. What are you guys going to do for Halloween?
I forgot it was going to be Halloween.
Me too. Well, I usually don't do anything.
No?
I usually don't dress up.
But
I do like going out, like costume watching.
You're looking at all the gays and their non-existent.
Over the topness, yeah.
Their light clothing.
Yeah, it's not my favorite holiday.
It's not. Yeah, we never did anything.
It's good people watching.
I used to, when we lived in Virginia, we had a house, so we were in a neighborhood. I liked giving out candy. That was fun. Basically, I liked giving out candy. To me, it was an excuse to drink during the week, so I would.
But you didn't give it out. You told me to run downstairs and give it to him.
Oh, so you just like to sit upstairs and drink?
Yes. And I didn't want to do it. I'd rather turn off all the lights.
I gave out.
And lay under the bed.
Oh my God, Kendall.
First of all, we didn't have stairs.
The townhouse.
No, I'm talking about.
They came there too.
Oh, in Virginia. No, in Virginia. We sat outside because the weather in Virginia in October was actually nice. So we'd sit outside and just hand out candy to all the little children.
But most of them were teenagers.
True.
We're not into NAMBLA or anything.
No, that was last week's episode.
But you seem obsessed with it.
Other things
Well, the membership fees are too high.
That's why you. So you should talk to your employer about including that in the benefits plan. Oh, geez, what are we talking about?
Professional dues.
So we're not doing anything spoopy. Obviously, not our season, but for Halloween, if you want to get spoopy with it, I encourage you guys to take a listen to our spoopy podcast with.
Our Spoopy Podcast. Our Spoopy Podcast.
The intern is screaming at us.
They you can find them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. They will likely be doing something very spoopy. I think they're still in the planning stages of what they're going to do. But
it's a surprise. I know, but it's a surprise.
It will be very spoopy. So take a listen to Spencer and Chris at our spoopy podcast. All right. So what else happened this week? There was a debate. Did you guys watch the debate?
I did not.
Democratic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a lot of people on one
Anything
stage.
good? There was
any clear winner, or is it just?
Well, they obviously all think Joe Biden will not be the nominee and it'll be Elizabeth Warren because they came.
Well, that's what
her.
I saw a lot of press that they came after her, which means they see her as a threat. Yeah.
Buttigieg and Klobuchar, those were the headlines I was seeing that they did well, and that What was your? I mean, it's funny. Journalists like they'll come up with their own narrative, and then it just kind of on Twitter it just perpetuates, and then all of a sudden that becomes a news story. But what was your observation, Kendall?
Pete did not look. I felt like he didn't look good in that light. He went attacking Elizabeth Warren for Medicare for All, and then the next day, of course, they found a tweet of him that says, the tweet is like, "I, Pete Buttigieg, support Medicare for All 100%," something like that.
How long ago was this tweet?
2 months ago. No, I'm kidding.
No, it was months ago, like within a year. Yeah,
since he started his campaign.
Yeah, so it just made him look opportunistic. Yeah. But Elizabeth Warren won't talk about her, how she's going to pay for the Medicare plan, so she kind of deserves it. But you came here for gay stuff, so...
Yeah, well, I was just wondering. I mean, we got a gay mayor, and what Trump's doing to potentially gay rights... yeah, I mean, it's important to understand who he's going to be battling against next November, if he's still president.
I actually met a lady today who voted for Mayor Pete. She used to live in Indiana.
Why'd she like him?
I don't know. Actually, so she had mentioned that, and then somebody else we had gotten off topic or whatever. But she was like, because I was like, she's from LaPorte, and I was like, oh, yeah. Just assumed she always lived here. She goes, no, I lived in Indiana for 18 years. Like, really? She goes, yeah, and I got to vote for Mayor Pete.
In South Bend, Indiana.
Did she vote for him the second term?
I don't know.
Because he came out in the first term.
Oh, really?
After that, she's like, gay, never mind.
No, I think she's pretty open. She's friends with me.
Oh, true.
Does she know you're gay?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He can tell he's gay by just the way he walks.
Yeah, but he keeps forgetting.
Well, no, because here's exactly what happened this weekend.
And the way he talks, listen to him.
Aww.
I'm this like raging aura of masculinity here,
Thomas.
And so nobody can tell. So I was at this trail run, walking back to my car, and
what were you doing on the trail run? One of those trails?
I wish.
Who are you running from?
You guys are lucky I don't have any game, because if I had game, I'd be snuggling with my little hottie in San Antonio right now. I wouldn't be back in Houston.
Sorry, guys, can't make the podcast because I met some guy on the trails.
Quitting. So it's like this 24-plus hour. Actually, it's like more. It's probably like a 30-hour trail run. So it's around the clock. There's 8 runners. You don't get any sleep, whatever. So I'm walking some stuff back to my car, and this guy's like talking to me. He's walking back to his car, and we get to cars, and I'm putting stuff in. He goes, "Oh, you're front runner?" I was like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "Oh, just wouldn't expect front runners to be here." And I was like, "Oh yeah, we're more." So for those that don't know, Front Runners is an LGBT running organization.
We had them on a quiz show. Remember?
Well, maybe new listeners.
No, I'm just saying. Well, just to that point, if you haven't heard the episode, we had a quiz show where you can hear about the Front Runners organization.
So he's like, I said, "Oh yeah, they're more road runners. Like not a lot of them do trails or whatever." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I just meant like they'd probably be too prissy for something like this."
Hey, I resemble that remark.
You're not too prissy. You just don't want to do it.
That's true.
I mean, some maybe, but But of course, he was talking.
You're more
to me,
like a butch.
He was talking to me for 3 minutes before he knew the only reason he knew is he saw the sticker because I'm this raging,
All right. Okay. You're not that homo. No
masculine
homo.
butch type.
Yeah, you are very butch. No homo, Tony. No homo. Wait. Just kidding.
We've come so far, but then people just assume stuff about us,
Yes.
Anyone else have any stories?
Any fun things with you this week, Kendall?
No, but Tony really wants me to tell my Whataburger story. So let me just shove that in. I go to Whataburger. I go to Whataburger just for Diet Coke because I'm addicted to Diet Coke, and the only reason I go to Whataburger is because they have 44-ounce cups you can get, and it's in styrofoam so it doesn't melt.
And
it's
so
free
there's a reason.
Free refills.
Yeah, and I sit there for hours. But it's in an area where there are lots of homeless people constantly asking for money and drugs and sex and all that.
Don't you just call those neighbors?
Right.
I do.
Exes. And one lady came in. I was like, oh, she's going to make her way to my corner and ask me for money for sure.
She did.
So she gets her cup of water and he goes and fills it with Dr. Pepper and then comes to me and says, "Why are you wearing a woman's sweater?" And then she says, "Haha, I'm just kidding. Listen, can I get a..." And as soon as she said, "Can I get a..." I said, "Nope, no, you may not. How are you going to tell me I have a woman's sweater on?"
But why were
and
you
then
wearing...
ask me for...
Why were
It
you
was
wearing
a
women's
Well, men
masculine-
could wear polka dots too.
It was a masculine sweater.
Yeah,
I saw
but he
it.
got it at Forever 21, the women's section.
No.
Since he lost all that weight, he's wearing Junior's petites.
I get more compliments on this sweater. Polka dots the size of coasters.
Oh, yeah, that's a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun
Areolas all over it.
So that's all your Whataburger stories? I mean, you always have good
Just for
Whataburger
today,
stories.
yeah.
All right, well, we'll have to stay tuned for future episodes. This is like a special segment of What's Up with Whataburger with Kendall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got a sponsor.
There we go. That's
You always have stories from Whataburger.
yes. Used to be
When
a
you're
big
there from dawn till dusk, there's plenty of things if you just open your eyes.
fan. All right. Well, that was a week then. Yeah, I can't say anything exciting happened to my week. I just kind of got through it. So let's get through this podcast. Well, Tony, tell us about your topic.
Well, my topic is about gays getting pissed off at people, and I'm actually quite interested to talk about this week's topic. So, we talk about a lot of big things like the Stonewall riots and the March on Washington.
Yeah, we do.
Things. Ooh, what?
Tony, is he
He's
cute?
easily distracted.
But I think it's important to talk about like smaller things that I think if it was.
Jeez.
Wait, why'd you look at me when you said that?
No, you were talking about that's the conversation we had before this podcast started.
So, if it wasn't for like smaller instances, I think these smaller instances in the gay rights movement kind of keep the momentum going. They get different people involved, things like that. So, this week in 1970, a group of gay activists actually stormed the offices of Harper's Magazine. And so it was over a controversial article that they published. And so what happened was, to set the stage, it was about a year and 3 months after the Stonewall riots, which, the Stonewall riots were very just violent in the streets. And the gay rights movement at the time, it was kind of like that. They just, felt they had to be that active. And at the time, Harper's, it was kind of a pillar of the liberal movement. So one of their journalists, Joe Epstein, he wrote this article called Homo Hetero, the Struggle for Sexual Identity. And it was a pretty scathing article about homosexuals, and it was pretty violent in tone, even demonic. It was like, he basically just said homosexuals are way different than us, and it's not like race or religion or anything like that. And he basically called us cursed and said that there's no cure for us. And he said that he had 4 sons, and he said no matter what his sons ever faced in the world, it would not be as bad as like being homosexual.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and he basically said that we were like living evidence that like our world was in despair of finding any kind of like normal design of the world. Just it was kind of like,
which is interesting because the world is in despair. You think about like all the leaders of these great nations, and not one other than we're going to assume what's his name, Buchanan, was gay. All been straight men. They're the ones who get us into war. They're the ones who cause these economic situations that that cause
Thanks,
us to go
Obama.
bankrupt and such. Yet it's the gays that are going to cause the end of the world.
Yeah, and so he basically, he said if it was up to him, like he would wish homosexuality was just forced off the face of the planet. And it's kind of interesting because he was actually he was a professor at Northwestern University for 40 years. He had won tons of awards. He was very distinguished. And this article was like very rambling and just incoherent. And so I don't really know if he maybe was struggling with something or whatever.
Alzheimer's. Okay.
Maybe.
Huh? Well, where are we?
But so he wrote this article, and the liberals were outraged that Harper's would even publish this. And so the Gay Activist Alliance, they were kind of a group that they saw the people protesting in the streets as, okay, we don't need that. We need something a little more like professional. But they were very in your face professionally. They would go to politicians and be like, they would call you on it, not let you kind of skirt around the issue.
They would do it in a power suit.
Yeah. So they basically stormed the office of Harper's Magazine, and they actually offered to write a rebuttal, and Harper said no. And so they said, this is bullshit. So they went to the office, 40 of them, and they actually showed up with donuts and coffee and a bunch of pamphlets, and they said, here's a diverse group of LGBT people, and we're going to educate you on that, what this guy wrote about is not, true about homosexuals. And so they started doing this, and the editor came out. And she was basically she said, this didn't say anything bad about homosexuals. And it's like,
is it the editor saying that?
Yeah, the editor came out, and she said, And so then it kind of got heated, but professional. I don't think it was.
Was the slant like they're mentally ill?
No, I don't think mentally ill. It was. I don't know if he specifically mentioned that or not, but
The reason I asked is because, let's see, I think it was 72, 74. The American Psychological
Association.
Association said it is not a mental disorder, an illness, or whatever. And that's when it became, after that, a choice. Because the argument
okay.
always... So
Yeah.
they're like, well, now we can't say they're crazy, so...
His
the new
thing-
argument is it's a choice.
His thing was just, it was horrible. And that's what makes me think maybe he was gay, because he talked about how horrible it was. And he basically said it brings more pain than pleasure to anyone living with it. And, he said...
Only the first few times.
Depends on how you're doing it.
I know. But he also said, his 4 kids, his 4 sons, he said no matter what they face in this world, it will not be as bad as being homosexual.
Did any of them turn out to be gay?
I don't know.
Oh.
That's a different story when we
Okay,
talk about
yeah.
it. So anyways, she denied that it reinforced any anti-homosexual opinion or whatever. And so they just kind of denounced her and the magazine for, just printing this bigoted information or whatever.
But it made people think.
It did. And, actually...
No, I'm talking about them protesting, not the article.
Yeah, and the article itself did too, because there were a couple of there was a person that wrote for the New York Times magazine, and he actually was sitting with some colleagues after this article came out, and they were kind of like saying what a great piece of literature it was, and he was pissed off, and he came out to them right then and there. And then he wrote an article several months later that we'll talk about in a future episode, but basically combating this person's article. So, but the protest in itself, I think, was good because, it's little things like this that, and this Gay Activist Alliance, I mean, they did a ton of little things like this, but I think little things like this are very important, because if it wasn't for these small things like Stonewall, I mean, and this probably affected the employees and that editor, like thinking about it, and you never know how many minds they change.
Well, because all the writers like to think they're intellectuals and they're smarter than everybody else.
Yeah.
So to present it with a different point of view.
And some people and that's the thing, like most legitimate writers are like, yeah, if you have a different point of view and you can be legitimate, but Harper's is like, no, you can't, like, we're not going to print a rebuttal. And then a lot of people about this article, they were like, but it's incoherent, it's rambling, for this distinguished professor and scholar,
Yeah, I think you're right. It's these baby steps, but this is after Stonewall, this is starting to you're starting to see gay people be more visible about their rights and fighting back, and it's not. And again, going back to our episode where we talked about Harry Hay, it's like one of those things. It's like the issue isn't me being gay. The issue is that you have an issue with me being gay,
yeah.
and you need to get over that, because I'm a human just like you are, and I should have the same rights that you do.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for special rights. I'm asking for equal rights, equal protections that you have, that everyone else has. And so so it's important that those, we owe a lot to people that are doing that. Again, did it change anyone's mind immediately? But this was a mark in time that other folks as part of the movement could say, they did that, I can do that too.
And it seems like here, a lot of gay rights activists at the time were just very like in the streets, in your face, and they were like, no, let's bring coffee and donuts and pamphlets and try to educate these people, because obviously they won't let us submit a rebuttal. And the editor's the one that kind of escalated it to like, this isn't anti-homophobic or anti-homosexual, blah blah blah, and that's when it got heated. They went there to just be amicable.
And I think, Kendall, you've said this before too. Like, you need both. You need the inflammatory, the flamethrowers. As much as those flamethrowers annoy me sometimes, because I'm like, that's not a practical solution. The Green New Deal is great to aspirational, but it's not going to get us. If all you're saying is Green New Deal, Green New Deal, Green New Deal, that's not going to get us to where we need to get to. But you need the Hillary Clinton types as well, who are like, okay, and the Kamala Harrises, who are going to get things done. It's like, it's great that you have good ideas, but let's figure out how we can take a chunk of that and make it happen.
Yeah.
And so,
and in this case, their initial thing was, let us write a rebuttal. Yep. And they said no. And that's when they said, okay, let's bring them pamphlets and educate them.
And you know those gays though. If you said they took donuts, I mean they were coming with a mission. Like, we're gonna make sure you're fat.
Oh, I thought you meant you know what they did to those donuts
Oh,
in the
well, maybe
elevator
that.
on the way up.
I don't know.
Ooh, gross. We have PG-13 rating.
Now we're PG-13. No, we're marked explicit every episode. We
Triple
never,
X.
Never know what's gonna come out.
Too old for an amp.
Jeez.
Well,
I'd be surprised if you won't have a card. So that's a good topic. But again, it talks about the movement. Kendall, before we go to you, a word from our sponsors. Hey, are you a small business owner trying to do it all? Take marketing, for example. Nowadays, your business has to have a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn account. Who has the time to take pictures, write posts, and get them posted online, let alone like, comment, share, and respond to followers? Don't worry, Economy Works is here to help. Let the Economy Works Talent Network help you do marketing so you can grow your business. Economy Works. When we work, the economy works. Woohoo! Find out more at economyworks.com.
Well, sorry to bring it down, folks. My topic's very dark, and it got in my head today.
But it needs
So
to be.
pour yourself a glass of wine, take the tissues out of your bra, and get ready.
I have them in my front,
Honey, I don't need tissues. You see my MBs.
So,
There'll be no laughing in the rest of this segment for the next 30
right,
minutes.
silence. Just sniffling.
I'm glad, though, that you're doing this because I feel like normally I get this really sad ones. I had to do, Pulse and 9/11, and so now
9/11 was a 3-hour special.
you get to do.
I know.
We listed all the victims out, it felt like.
Tell me
Long.
about it.
It was just a long, dark. All right, so this one is the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, mostly known as the Matthew Shepard Act, just because his name is the first one. It was passed October 22nd, 2009, and signed by Obama October 28th, 2009. We'll talk about the murders in a second, but what this act did is it expanded the 1969 federal hate crimes law to include laws motivated by a victim's actual or perceived gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability.
The original one was just race or...
There were
Actually, not
several
really, because-
hate crime laws, but the original was 1969. It was just race.
Okay.
Race or perceived race. And it also only covered laws or federally protected actions like voting or going to school.
Oh,
So
because I was going to say, yeah.
It didn't even cover like if you got bashed at a grocery store
Yeah.
or something. So it's expanded a lot, but that didn't happen until 2009. It gave the local authorities greater ability to investigate hate crimes if the local authorities chose not to, which is very common.
Yeah.
So say there's a hate crime in Podunk, Texas, and the sheriff doesn't want to investigate. This gives the FBI authority.
Well, it
to come
happened in
and
Houston
say-
with Paul Broussard, like we talked about.
Yeah.
They said, we're not gay guy in Montrose.
And then it requires the FBI to track statistics on hate crimes based on gender and gender identity. Okay, so, and you both heard of Matthew Shepard, right?
Yeah.
And James Byrd, because they're both two horrific
James
things.
Byrd
that,
was the Jasper, Texas guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Two horrific things that happened in 1998. In two separate communities, and yes, they overlap, but it was like the gay community that year felt, please listen to us. Like, we're in danger. We're disproportionately affected. And the black community saying the exact same thing. And they're both right. But it kind of came to a head in 1998 after these horrific murders. So Matthew Shepard was born in 1976. He was a University of Wyoming student and struggled with his homosexuality. He was a petite little man. I don't even think he was 5 feet, or he was around 5 feet tall. He was 5'3", I'm being told by a producer in my ear. But he was very... Oh, my God.
A producer in my ear. Like, how low does that earpiece that you have that we can hear him too?
Great, the no laughing rule. Sorry. He broke the note.
This is serious.
This is dark and serious, and I've lost my place.
He was a University of Wyoming student.
This is Kendall getting the church giggles. Did I ever tell you the time, on an aside, we were at a Christmas party. It was a work Christmas party.
It was the day of.
The day of. We had a moment of silence. The president of the business unit that I was supporting was having a moment of silence for Sandy Hook.
Oh, okay.
And I take Martha. Martha was originally my date because Kendall had to work, but then Kendall wound up being Josh's date because Josh was like, okay, I could bring someone last minute. Anyways, we're sitting at the table, moment of silence. I'm sitting around my peers, and Kendall and Martha start giggling while we're having the moment of silence about Sandy Hook.
I could see that.
It was like a minute long.
They were giggling for like 59 of those
And
seconds.
I felt, it's not that I, think it's funny. It was just
No, right.
something somebody did that made me laugh uncontrollably, and
Yeah.
everyone at the table could hear me.
Like,
It was
Yes.
very awkward.
So-
But back to Matthew.
Here, back to Matthew.
So he was a little tiny man.
Well, when you say it like that, jeez, you're not even drinking. Must be those antibiotics. Is that what we're calling it?
Okay,
the chemo,
stop.
the chemo.
You're disrespecting me.
Do I need to go?
Wait, is
we
this
come
the
back?
Christmas party? Is this
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
Do I need to come back to this topic? Do we need to come back?
No.
Okay,
University
so
of Wyoming student.
Look at Tony. He's trying to be so studious and listen.
I am listening. This is a good topic.
Yeah, it is. Stop laughing. Wow.
we're gonna have to please edit this out. I always ask for things to be edited out,
No.
just for time constraints, and we'll edit it out. And we'll get back. Okay, we've edited. We're back. So first of all, my impression of Matthew Shepard is that he was a sensitive, sweet guy, and people tend to take advantage of people like that.
Yeah.
And I think he was someone that was repeatedly taken advantage of. He struggled with depression and a drug habit later in his life, and the media and other people tried to say, they focused heavily on that versus what really happened, which we'll get into. But in 1995, when he was in high school, and I couldn't find details on it online, but he took a high school trip to Morocco and was raped.
He was, yeah.
What do you know about that?
So I've watched a couple documentaries about him. So basically, he went to Morocco with some friends so his dad was in the oil field, and so he's from Wyoming, but they traveled all over the place. And his dad was working somewhere, so he went to a boarding school. And so he and all these friends from boarding school went to Morocco for like a vacation, for like a weekend or a week. And they were all, staying in rooms together, whatever. And so one night they're all like, okay, let's go back to the hotel and chill. And he's like, I'm kind of not feeling like I'm, wanting to go out. And I think at the time he was struggling with his homosexuality, he was a teenager. And he basically was walking in this night market, and, some guys saw him and thought,
Easy prey.
small kid, rich American probably because he's, in Morocco as a teenager.
Blonde
by
hair, blue
himself.
eye, too, so
yeah.
he stands out.
And so I don't know if they raped him and stole his money or... Oh, yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
This is on the street? Like they just
he
put
was,
him into
he
an
was
alley
in a
or
night
something?
market. I don't know if they kind of like, hey, what's up? And then pulled him into an alley. I don't think it was like grabbed him and threw him down. I think it was more like, hey, what's up, cutie? And then, like sweet talked him and then raped him. But
Which is
it
what
wasn't
happened the night he
consensual.
got killed, right?
But it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't consensual. Yeah.
Ugh. So obviously that will make you depressed.
That was his friends, his high school friends, mostly girls. They said that was kind of a turning point in his life.
his
So he
mom
never
said that
told
too.
anyone. Well, I mean, I'm sure he told some people, but he never like that night said I was just raped. But people were like, after that night, he was changed. Like he was different.
Do you think that obviously he was raped, but do you think that he thought he was going into a consensual? I mean, I'm speculating here. but
I
don't
don't
know.
think so.
About the Morocco thing?
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it was just like, hey,
Who knows
this
with that? I mean, that's...
No, I think like he thought, oh, this is cool. I'm being sweet talked, but he didn't know it would be sex. I think the sex was forced on him.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
And I think.
Oh no, I
ultimately-
think I honestly think maybe he went out that night saying I'm not ready for bed yet. I want to go sightseeing a little.
Yeah.
I think he probably went out looking for a little, but he was also like maybe not ready to commit to sex because he's a teenager.
Because I know that, there's been times where, like, alone, like, oh, well, when you're traveling by yourself, like, I'll just be someone else. And so, and again, I'm not putting the blame on him. I'm just, because you can get the situations where you're like, I want to try this, and you're like, I need to get out.
No, I think he was young, naive. He was in this night market, and these guys started talking.
He was
to him.
excited.
Thought,
He was
okay.
on a senior trip.
Yeah.
And I
wanted
say
to
that
see.
because this happened. I mean, this was so when he died, there was a similar. I mean, not
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
similar,
We'll get into
but
that,
like,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's why I ask if like he was. I didn't know if any of the, but again, no one knows.
No,
about
I
the
think
event.
he probably like enjoyed being courted or sweet talked by these guys, but he didn't want the sex, and I think
Right.
when it went there,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and he
again-
was probably just being a friendly, oh, someone's talking to me. I need to talk to
Exactly,
them back.
yeah.
And to be sure, like this, I'm not saying it was his fault. Any of this, it was just a matter of like,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
wondering,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll try it, and then it was like it got too deep, too fast. So,
So
Okay.
that led to, understandably, depression and a drug habit. I don't think he wasn't an addict or anything like that, but he developed,
Probably to deal with his problems.
yeah, so he would do it somewhat often. Wasn't too dependent on it, but it popped up in the rest of his life. So he went to school at the University of Wyoming, not too many years later, 3 years later, and he went to a bar and met two guys. Two guys approached him and told him that they were gay and, hey, you want to hang out? We'll take you home. Flirting with him. What they really saw was a little vulnerable guy, and we can take him back home, rob him,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. So he got in the car, and because he thinks they're gay, because they told him he's gay, he put his hand on one of the guy's knees, and that's when he flipped, and later used the gay panic defense, which we've talked about before, which is an old defense in the courtroom where they say, well, a gay person hit on me, so obviously I had a
My life
blackout.
was in date, yeah.
I went insane. As you can understand, if you can imagine being hit on by
A
another
guy's
man.
hand on your knee makes you go crazy.
So he
forget what you're doing. Yeah.
initially used the gay panic defense. When he saw that wasn't working, he dropped it. But they beat and tortured and put him on it, tied him to a fence post. And a jogger the next day found him, and they said his face was so red with blood that the only place you could see skin was where his tears
yeah.
went down his
Yep.
cheek, which is like, oh, so sad. Because that makes you think he was just, like, he knows he was left for dead.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I mean, he was unconscious or whatever, but he lived for a few days, and it's
6
like,
days.
Mhm.
yeah, and you don't know what his mind knew and what it didn't. You know what I mean? It's just, and laying out there, and I mean, you know, it was like minutes and minutes and minutes, if not like probably like 10, 20, 30 minutes before he got to the point where he was blacked out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not like one swipe and you're,
Oh, no.
yeah.
And they did they use weapons to like?
They pistol whipped him.
Oh, gotcha.
And the jogger that found him thought it was a scarecrow because he just looked
Yeah,
like
because she
such
kind
a
of passed
lifeless-
and then was, yeah.
It was also like 30 degrees.
Yeah, it was like
I was about to
middle of
say it was
winter.
October
Yeah.
in Wyoming, so it's
Yeah.
had to have been pretty chilly.
Right. And he was in a coma for 18 hours, I think. He died how long afterwards?
It was 6 days.
Yeah, 6 days
something like
afterwards.
that. But yeah, I read something where his mom was like, all I could see was his blue eye, like it was just red, and you could just see his blue eyes. It was like,
His mom became, and is still to this day, an advocate.
Yep.
She goes around. When I was a freshman at LSU, she was there to speak, and I thought about going to her event. It was canceled because it was 9/11.
Oh, really?
So she was there to speak 9/11 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So I know we can go more on about Matthew Shepard. It's a very dark topic.
Well, I guess I do want to just comment one other thing before we move on. So I watched a lot of documentaries about him, and one thing that, like, this really hits home to me, it just, like, worsens the situation. But, you know, so his parents, they lose their son to this horrible, you know, beating and everything and, like, whatever they're going through. And at his funeral, there were protesters. And it's like,
yeah.
they just lost their son. And, I mean,
it's the Westboro Baptist Church.
yeah, and I mean,
protesters.
and you know, the thing is, the community showed up in strides to, like, have the, you know, the angels against them. But I was like, I just can't believe that, like, these poor people lost their son. People say that's the worst pain you can ever go through is losing a kid, especially losing a kid that way. And it's like, that's what they had to put up with.
Well,
It's
the
just-
parents could hear them shouting, "God hates fags," all that.
Yep.
And they had specifically would call out Matt's name.
Yep.
Matt's in hell, that kind of stuff. So a lot of his friends gathered. They dressed as angels with wings and white robes and formed a circle around the protesters. But the protesters didn't get any quieter.
And I guess one other thing. So when his killers got found guilty, they basically said it's up to his parents. They said it was up to his mom and his dad. They said if you want the death penalty, we will give him the death penalty. And his dad wanted it. And she was like, kind of talked him out of it. And basically, so the dad gave the speech in court, and he said, I wanted this, but he goes, I know what it's like to lose a kid. I don't want your parents to go through that.
Yeah, she wanted to show mercy.
Yeah.
And they never show any remorse,
Yeah, yeah.
They still act like it was justifiable.
Yeah.
They say it was a drug deal gone bad, or
Right.
it's changed several
The sheriff
times.
that investigated that, so that's not even there's no. It was because he was gay.
Well, and the bartender said, she overheard them saying, like, he looks like he's got some money. Yeah.
Which, if you're taking a guy home to rob him at home, obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
however old he was at the time, they don't have money at that age, so you're taking him home to rob.
But the thing
so
is,
what is your defense for killing him?
And the thing is, any money he has, he's probably got on him. It's like pocket change.
Right.
And so, like, when you get him out of the bar, like, beat him up at your car and then get in the car and drive away. Like,
it just doesn't make sense about the
Yeah.
robbery.
Which is even crazier though, because that happened to him twice, right? I mean, he was both like seduced. I don't mean that.
Yeah.
But I mean enticed, tricked, raped, beaten, whatever, and then like that doesn't happen. Like,
No, but I think, like Kendall said, if you're a 5'3",
yeah,
skinny,
And some
kid,
people just give off
the vibe of being
a
vulnerable.
vibe that they're an easy, innocent target.
Yep.
And people prey on that.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy that would happen to him. Like, and one brutally raped, and then second again, like then you're murdered. Like,
Yep.
that's just crazy.
Well, the same year James Byrd died, James Byrd Jr., in Jasper, Texas. There were 3 white supremacists there that offered to take him home. They kind of knew him, offered to take him home, and they wound up.
And they were out at a bar, or what was the?
No, they saw him out in public.
Okay.
And they wound up beating him, spray painting his face, peeing on him, and crapping on him. And they tied his legs with chains and dragged him 3 miles. And it was
they tied his leg with chains and drug his body at the end of the truck. He was drug on the pavement, for 3 miles.
For 3 miles, they hit a culvert, and it decapitated him and severed his right arm. So they found the body parts intact. They said there were 11 different locations of body matter, basically. And they did it because they were white supremacists who saw a black man as a target.
And what do you think the Jasper police are going to do in terms of investigating that? I mean, and I don't know if you have any intel, but my guess is
unless
boys will be boys.
Yep.
But obviously something happened, right? I mean, action was taken. It was made big media. It got a lot of media attention.
Which can put a lot of pressure on local police authorities to do the job right.
Yep.
But just on that,
Sometimes.
though, when you do that, though, they don't have the infrastructure. I mean, they're not a police department in Jasper, Texas, is not prepared for the media onslaught that probably happened to them. So I can't imagine how it got to.
And so, do you know if they initially did investigate, or they had to be forced?
Oh, they initially did.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yeah. But when they dragged him 3 miles, they dumped his headless body in front of a black cemetery.
Oh, get the
like still showing no remorse, almost like a haha, here you go.
Or like, this is what we do to black people. Yeah.
The main killer had several racist tattoos. Like one was a black man hanging from a tree. And then he had Nazi symbols and the words Aryan Pride. And he had recently been released from prison before that happened, where he said he had been gang raped by black men repeatedly. So he had all this. First of all, he went in there a racist, and you have to know it. But part of him, he says, was doing unto James Byrd some of the pain that was inflicted on him.
No way.
He did get the death penalty. 2 out of the 3 got the death penalty. And to the end, he actually said he was happy to get rid of one less N-word, and he was doing the Lord's work, and he was trying to incite a race war, and he knows that, he said, once he realized he killed the guy, he knew he was doing something historical and great for white mankind. One of the guys his last meal, he chose, I mean, I'm not going to read it all because it was like 20 different things. Bucket of fried chicken and a gallon of Bluebell ice cream and so curly fries. It was just very, very specific. And then when they brought it, he said, I'm not hungry. You can throw it away. Like, still just trying to.
Yeah.
So after that, Texas no longer gives people the option of what they can have for their last meal.
He's the
on
one
the
that,
spot. Yeah, he's the reason why.
Wow.
So those were the two horrific things that happened in 1998 that led to the bill. However, it didn't pass. This was 1998. It didn't pass until Obama in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Clinton, it was at the tail end of his presidency. He tried, although I don't think he put the full weight of his presidency
He was
behind
getting
it.
impeached at the time.
Yeah.
Clinton kind of half-assed, and it couldn't get passed.
And I remember George Bush, he goes, every crime is a hate crime.
What was it? You were giving us a W impersonation, huh? Every crime.
Well, he threatened to veto, so they had to wait another 8 years to get through his
Because
presidency.
he said every crime is a hate crime.
Well, I remember when he said that, I asked my dad, what do you think about it? He says, well, we already have laws covering murder. And I explained to him, and it felt like it went through. But I said there are some communities, some people that are more of a target.
Yeah.
And it's deemed a little more excusable if you get rid of one less blank on this earth.
Yep.
I mean, look at all the lynchings that happened in the U.S. Do you think those people were being prosecuted? No, they were hung up and people would take pictures of them.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole concept of a gay panic defense is kind of saying, well, it's just a gay, and as you can imagine how threatening they can be.
Yeah.
You know, it's ridiculous. We've gotten a long way from that, yet we need laws like this one that Obama signed to actually cover us. And it's the same thing, a lot of the same conservatives that say, we don't need gays in a hate crime law, we don't need hate crimes, really care about Blue Lives Matter laws, as if, like, because cops are in a dangerous, they're protecting people and they're more likely to be hurt, they want the most strict punishment if you murder a cop, period.
Yeah.
So there's some hypocrisy there.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think, I mean, just on that point, you're not saying either or. You're saying both can be true, right? You can have the Blue Lives Matter like laws, but also
yes, and I bring that up to say, okay, let me think of a topic that matters a lot to you and show you that. Can you tap into some of your compassion for police officers to kind of correlate with other groups?
Because the premise
that are a minority.
I mean, because the conservatives will argue, or the folks that are for that will argue, well, you know, these guys are protecting your lives every day. But your premise is, if the thought is you're in danger, you're in more danger because you're protecting us, right? That's as a police officer. You should also recognize that as a black person,
we're just living our life,
gay person.
Well, there's also a racial component to it, because there are a huge percentage of whites in this country that are very fearful that they're losing power. And the more people you add to hate crime law, they're like, oh my God, it's basically everybody against white people.
Yeah, because you see all the time.
Like, how many more people can you add to that
the poor
law?
white man, the poor white man. Like, you see it a lot with employment, you know?
Right.
People like,
they think it's special treatment to need a hate crime law.
Well, that's why I guess I want to kind of hit
Imagine
on that because
irony.
it's like, for folks who are saying, "Oh, it's special treatment." It's like, no, it's special treatment. We're telling you, you can't treat minorities, gay people as second-class citizens, which is what the laws basically kind of endorse, right? In the past, to say, "Oh, well, they're just black or they're just gay, so therefore they don't."
Hate crime laws are for violence,
right?
You know what I mean?
Well,
it's the right to live and survive.
But the point is, I mean, because again, the folks that are more conservative would argue, well, why do you need that? I mean, there are murder laws. But the point is, it's like these groups.
But you can get off with a gay panic defense in the past.
But and not only that, like, there are murder laws, but like in 1991 or whatever, when Paul Broussard was murdered in Houston, he was leaving a gay bar and walking to his car. The police are like, we're not even going to investigate that. What are you talking about? It was a gay man in Montrose. Nobody cares.
What was he doing walking around so late?
Well, that's the point. It's just like you need these hate laws because historically LGBT people, especially now trans people, like
Yes,
they're viewed as
yeah.
second-class citizens. So it's like,
Yeah.
so you make it, it's like it's almost easier to target them because you're like, well, I'm not going to get punished for that.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the hate crime is like, yeah, you're going to get punished under the normal law, but you're also going to get doubly punished because you are treating these people like they're
Yeah, you're targeting them because of
right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people kind of lose. Like that's where it gets even. I'd say independents or people who aren't conservatives, but people who I guess are uninformed about what goes on. You know, they're not engaged in politics as we are. They're like, well, why do you need those laws? And it's like, well, no, because these groups get targeted, and it's not
And
just
many
that they get-
times they've gotten off or gotten very light sentences that would not be
Yeah.
comparable
Well-
to straight, typically white defendants.
And I think that's the key, right? It's just like it's not just that they get targeted. It's that for so long they've been viewed as not as significant, or they
Yeah.
don't matter as much, and that's why you go to the Black Lives Matter. People are like, well, all lives matter. It's like, no, you have not treated Black lives like
'cause
every
the thing
other
is,
life.
if there's not like a federal law that people are upheld to, so these guys kill this guy in Jasper, Texas. Mr. Jasper Sheriff is investigating. Jasper neighbor is on the jury.
Elected district attorney.
Yeah, exactly. And then all these, like white people are on the jury. I mean, maybe nothing happens. Where if the feds get involved and it goes to federal court or something, it's like they're a little more.
I briefly dated a guy from Jasper, Texas. We went on like 3 dates, and when he said he was from Jasper, I said, "Oh, from Jasper, where James Byrd was killed." He said, "Yeah, but that guy was into drugs, and that was a drug deal gone bad. The media really twisted it."
Oh Lord.
you still drag
And
the
it was
man
like
3 miles.
right.
on-
It was like a instant like knee jerk defending the white supremacist,
Yeah. It's like, bitch, you're gay.
trying to say it wasn't about race.
right.
Yeah.
So the man who used the arms he used had a black man hanging from a noose on
Yeah,
his arm to put
exactly.
the chains on him, and you're going to tell me it's a drug deal?
gone bad. Yeah.
But it goes to the whole what you were saying, that man could be on a jury. That mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
Of-
And if a gay man who's a minority feels that, think about all anybody else in that town. Yeah. And I mean, if jury your peers, they're the
the ones
they're
who
the
decide, yeah.
deciders. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's that's crazy. I do think, this law was very important. Only with the way that was passed in 2009, right? You had the Democrats had both control of the House and Senate, and Barack Obama was president, so that was the only way that was gonna get done.
And guess who pushed it and was pretty much the main proponent of it? My girl Nancy.
Nancy Pelosi,
Nancy P.
Nancy P. And you mean that third-rate politician or whatever? We'll have to come back, I think, on Matthew Shepard and just talk about him in a future episode.
Because
Oh,
this
his
is about
mom.
the act more than...
Yeah.
Yeah, and his mom. Oh, yeah.
And before we get into my topic, I wanted to talk about this at the intro, but just because I'm curious what you guys think, because it's on the Nancy. Well, it's not. It's strong women. Hillary Clinton recently was like coming after Tulsi Gabbard, saying she didn't say Tulsi Gabbard by name, but was called.
But she
her-
confirmed by a spokesman
did
that's
she?
who she was talking about.
It said that Tulsi Gabbard was a Russian asset. That she said on a podcast that the Russians are grooming an asset
To be a third party
to be a
candidate.
third party candidate to basically do what Jill Stein did, who she said is pretty much a Russian
No,
asset.
she said, which was totally an asset.
Yeah, so she thinks the Russians are trying to influence the election by what's the right word to taking advantage. That's not the word, but they're trying to flip a candidate in the Democratic primary, which is Tulsi Gabbard, right? And so she said this on a podcast. Then Tulsi said something. Then Hillary,
Queen of warmongers, she called her.
on Twitter, and then Hillary kind of fired back too on Twitter. Well, she just kind of did her. She used a meme of herself
Laughing.
to what's that?
Of her laughing.
Yeah, of her laughing. So any reaction? This happened like over the last 2 days. I don't know.
It was
Tony, if you-
sloppy of Hillary. She needs to lay low a little
Yeah,
bit
I'm like,
because
what is
she's
she
gonna.
doing?
What has she got to lose?
She's messing some things up.
Yeah, it's one thing.
But
Like,
do you not think she has a legitimate point?
but isn't Tulsi?
But what
Gabbard-
evidence does she have? You
Yeah.
can't just throw that out.
The president does that. The irony is, people are like, "Oh my gosh!" But the president does that all the time.
But do you think she I do feel Hillary Clinton
All the
is
more
a
reason
very
not to do it.
legitimate, well thought out individual. You don't think she really feels that, or do you think she doesn't like Tulsi Gabbard or
Well,
what?
Tulsi's like
She feels it, but I feel like chocolate ice cream is disgusting.
What?
Like, no reason to
Controversy.
point it out.
But I mean, like, do you think the Russians had any influence on Jill Stein? Or because she's the one that sued Wisconsin for
There's no proof.
the voting
that's
machines.
that's the thing. It's just like, to your point of Hillary's so like measured. Why did she decide to go there? And like, why did she throw these things out there? Like, that's so crazy. Like, I
It
don't
wasn't
know.
the right way to do it.
Yeah, and it's like to
And we don't even have a nominee yet.
And Hillary Tulsi's still like, she's part of the military. So basically, you're saying this House rep who's running for president, the same role that you had in 2016, and as part of an active member of the military, you're saying she's a traitor to the to the country. Like, that's a big deal. Like,
yeah.
at first I was like, oh, it's nothing, but then as I read some of the reactions, I'm like, that's kind of ballsy. But
Well, she's still bitter,
yeah,
understandably.
She that election.
You guys
Since
hate
Monica.
her, so let's move on.
No, I don't hate her. I just like I was
You
surprised.
hate all lesbians.
But
whatever.
it got into all sorts of like crazy things. All right, so to my topic, you guys are gonna have to bear with me because it's a little bit of a I won't say conspiracy theory. It's unproven, but I think it's interesting because it's going around and in like LGBT magazines and things like that. So and it's been out there for a couple of years. So I'll throw this out there, and you guys will we can kiki about it. So October 28th, 1886, President Grover Cleveland dedicated the Statue of Liberty as a gift from the people of France on what is now known as Liberty Island in New York Harbor. So this Statue of Liberty is unveiled, so to speak. There wasn't like a big, the Statue of Liberty wasn't draped in cloth or anything, and there was the big.
She didn't do a burlesque
No.
thing? Okay.
But there was a big celebration, fireworks and whatnot, and so that happened on October 28th, 1886. So there was all sorts of. So you guys have been to the Statue of Liberty?
I've not actually.
I mean,
You've
I've
never been to
seen
New
it.
York?
I don't. It's too touristy for
I've been
me.
to New York. I
Oh,
just
yeah?
haven't
Okay.
been to Statue of Liberty.
No, I actually never been either. Like I've seen it from
I've seen it
from Manhattan, but I didn't go on the island because it just seemed like a lot of work.
I don't like touristy stuff
Yeah,
either.
yeah. It was like, oh, I saw it. I wanted to see it
Just
because I
for
was
an
like,
Instagram photo.
I had to see it,
I
but
saw it in the movie Working Girl. That's all I need.
there you go. But it has an interesting history. I mean, I always thought it was just the what do you guys know about the Statue of Liberty? It was a gift from France to the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know.
She was originally copper color, and
Yeah.
she's bluish green because of
She-
aged
Right.
copper,
But
oxidized.
it actually wasn't just
science
the
stuff.
the French government wasn't just handing over the statue to the Americans. This was actually an idea that was kind of born out from a French political thinker who's deemed the father of Statue of Liberty, Edward Laboulaye, or Laboulaye. And he kind of proposed this idea of a monument to the U.S. This was in 1865, so this was after at the end of the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And so he thought it would be a good idea to kind of mark the end of the Civil War. But also, we're coming up in 1867, we're coming up on the centennial of the American Revolution,
Yeah.
right? And so he's like, it's a good way to recognize the American Revolution. He was like, it's a 1867.
The intern is saying things
We're
we don't
coming
know.
up on 1876, which
We
would
don't know
have
what's
been
going on.
which would have been the
We're trapped in
100
between.
years since
We're like
1776.
battered children.
Yes.
Lock the door.
So,
Oh my god.
so he's like, this would be a good.
You don't have a mic.
Well, no. The thing is, like, he's like, okay, this is again, they won the Civil War. They're into slavery. We're coming up on the 100-year anniversary of the American Revolution. And it was a little bit controversial. It wasn't like necessarily embraced by the French government at the time, because they're like, well, if we say yay America, pro democracy, we're gonna say pro democracy to our French countrymen and women,
Yeah.
which we're not prepared to do yet. So this idea was born out. Nothing kind of really happened to it. But then the sculptor Augustine Bartholdi really kind of grabbed this idea and said, okay, let's try to do something with this. Of course, his idea wasn't necessarily, I want to build the Statue of Liberty. He really wanted to just build a big statue. He was inspired. So Bartholdi was inspired as a young man when he went on a trip to Egypt. So he was fascinated by these big sculptures and pyramids and large structures. And he said, I want to do something like that. What he really was fascinated how these structures just and I think was kind of, as I read it, well, I was like, wow, this is pretty powerful when you think about these big sculptures. It's like they ignore the present and they're fixed on the infinite future, which as I saw pictures as I was doing the research about the Statue of Liberty, I really started to think about that. I was just like, she stands the test of time, right? She's just kind of, I mean, she was made in the 1880s, but really, she endures all those years and decades before and after us. But anyways, that's what he was inspired by. So his original idea was to build a big statue for the Suez Canal, because the Suez Canal was being built in the 1850s and 1860s.
She was going to straddle it.
Yeah, she was going to straddle it.
With a stream below.
So this statue that he was envisioning was like, okay, he's going to build that, and it was going to be in Egypt, and it was going to be carrying the light to Asia. Because it was this, Suez Canal, Egypt, is this kind of this bridge between the West and the East, right? And that's really where he saw, like, Bartholdi saw where civilization was in the Middle East, because it was the big connector between the two cultures. So he had this idea, wanted to make the statue for the Suez Canal. The Egyptian government said, no, we're good. So then he latches onto this idea that Le Boulez said, or La Boulez said. And so he started to kind of grasp this idea, and so they collaborated a bit. And then Bartholdi went to the U.S. and tried to peddle this idea. So he went to Grant, President Grant at the time, and said, hey, what about this statue?
And it wasn't sanctioned by the French government. He just went by himself to...
He was trying to get paid.
Yeah.
Somebody buy my statue.
Well, he wanted to get paid, but he also just wanted to, like, build this kind of big thing. Like,
it was a vanity project.
Yes. So, and it bores out and kind of what he had to do to get it made. So he had this idea, sold Grant on it. They landed on what is the island that they have it today, which is Liberty Island. Which before that it was an island in New York City, well in New York State. But it used to be a military base, and so he saw that as a good opportunity that the government could have control. You didn't have to go try to buy it from somebody.
They already own the island.
If you could convince Grant, the American government, which he did, to say, hey, let's do this statue, and oh, by the way, this would be a good area, then it would be an easier sell, right? So you have the land, and you don't have to negotiate that. So he got that secured in the 1870s. And then in 1870, and then he started to work to build it. The challenge is none of the governments were necessarily like, yeah, let's go do this. Well, Grant was nodding his head, and the French people were like, well, it seems like a good idea.
Like he was accepting, but not I'm going to pay for it.
Yeah, no one was going to pay for it. So the French, they had, through a series of lotteries and exhibitions and stuff, they started to fund this, because the way it was going to work was the French were going to build the Statue of Liberty, and the Americans had to build the pedestal on which the statue was going to be placed upon. So they spent the latter part from 1870 to like 1884 trying to get funding, and finally in 1884 the statue was built in Paris. And then once it was built, then they disassembled it and then they shipped it to the U.S. In 1885. They actually had to break it apart, and it actually got lost in the Atlantic for 10 days. No one knew where it was, which is kind of an odd thing. If you think you built this massive statue and
she needed time away.
Yeah, she was like, hey, I'm going to a new country.
She needed a long time.
But finally, in 1885, it made it on June 17th, it made it to New York. But the pedestal wasn't ready, and they're still trying to secure funding for the pedestal. And so it was basically put in storage. Finally, in 1885, Joseph Pulitzer, the famous newspaper mogul, put forth his effort, leveraged his resources, and basically created what today now we'd call a crowdsourcing or crowdfunding effort. He put in his papers you guys need to he chastised the rich for saying, shame on you guys for not donating money to this. He's chastised the middle class. He's like, shame on you guys for thinking the rich people are going to do this. And he really tried to invite everybody else to donate some money. So through a series of like a Bernie Sanders campaign, less than $1, he got all these donations, and they were finally able to fund the pedestal. And so in 1886, the pedestal's built. And then in 1886, again this year, you've got the Statue of Liberty is finally unveiled. Again, it wasn't a big drape, but there were fireworks and guns. And President Grover Cleveland was there and kind of led that ceremony, the dedication of the Statue of Liberty, which we all now know and celebrate. At the time, Cleveland saluted Bartholdi and said, "The greatest man in America today." And at the time, at the unveiling, Bartholdi also he unveiled the French flag on top of the statue, which was, I think, some irony. I mean, we view the Statue of Liberty as this beacon of American liberty.
Yeah.
And it was made by a French man. When it was dedicated, there was a French flag. And then the President of the United States is saying, "This is the greatest man in America today." The Statue of Liberty, although none of us have been there, 4 million people go every year. It's 305 feet tall from pedestal to the tip of the torch, so pretty tall, and it weighs 225 tons. The one thing I would note about the statue, it's super thin. It's only as wide as 2 pennies. So it's this huge.
The
massive,
what is?
The Statue of Liberty.
Oh, the
Thickness.
skin, her skin.
Yeah, so she's got
Her
this
gown.
massive robe and everything, but the depth is only 2 pennies deep. So it's it's very.
Have you ever
thin.
tried to bend a penny
No.
between your thighs?
Yes.
No.
Wait, are you saying she's a lesbian?
Well, no, but I'm just giving some facts about the statue. The one thing I would note is so you think about the Statue of Liberty had to endure, I don't think about hurricanes going up there, but hurricanes do hit New York City, notably Hurricane Sandy and was it 2012?
Hurricane Bianca.
Well, you think after 30 years or whatever, just the erosion would eat away at it, you
Right.
know?
But the statue
That's what happened to me
was
after
influenced,
300
the I'll say the kind of the integrity of the statue was influenced and consulted with the guy who built the Eiffel Tower. So there's some that's how it endures its strength. Just some other fun facts about the statue. The torch is representative of the beacon of light for freedom and hope. The crown, there's 7 rays from the crown, which represents the 7 continents. It's got she's got a tablet which is inscribed with the date July 4th, 1776 in Roman numerals. She's got chains. What's that?
None of us would be able to read it today.
Yeah. She's got chains on her feet, which we all think about this as a sign of freedom, but it's really breaking free from slavery. Again, this is post-Civil War. Oh, sorry. Yeah, but this is talking about chains post. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's breaking free of the shackles of oppression and tyranny. And then she's got these green robes, which, as you noted earlier, Kendall, they were actually copper when this thing was originally built, but because of the
green looks better on her, I think.
How copper.
I couldn't imagine it as a copper statue after knowing, I guess we just know it's green, so.
Well, how it oxidizes. Yeah, it's green now. So that's how we know it. So the one thing that I think is interesting, why it's related to LGBT history, is the face, and this has become into question recently. So the face was originally thought to, the Statue of Liberty, I'd say, is inspired by some kind of Roman mythology, Greek mythology about liberty, but the face, was always thought to be inspired by the sculptor's mother, Charlotte. But in 2014, a journalist named Elizabeth Mitchell released a book, which is called Liberty's Torch, The Great Adventure to Build the Statue of Liberty, and said, you know what, he never confirmed that his mother was the inspiration.
Was it his boyfriend?
Well, hold on. And she said, which is odd because he was pretty proud of himself. Again, we talked about this being a vanity project, so he was constantly promoting himself. And she suggested that the face was not so much his boyfriend, because he was married to a woman, but his brother Charles, who was a once promising law student who ended up in an insane asylum. And so the thing about it is, Bartholdi had to take care of his brother while he was in this insane asylum, so spent a lot of time with him. And so she said, the author Elizabeth Mitchell says, as she was looking at it more carefully, the pictures of the structure of the Statue of Liberty and kind of some pictures from his past, she's like, the structure of the face really isn't the same as his mother. His mother has a more arched eyebrow, has a thinner nose, has thinner lips, even in her younger days. She argues that the statue was modeled after Bartholdi's brother, because he was a caretaker. Bartholdi was a caretaker of his brother while he was, ill. He said he got to spend more time with him, and the features of his brother more resemble the features of the Statue of Liberty.
So it's a drag queen. She's a drag queen.
She's a drag queen, cross-dresser. One of those.
That explains the pageant tiara.
So 2014 it came out. There were a couple of articles about it. In 2016, it really started, this kind of news and theory started to circulate because the Discovery Channel had the Secrets of America's Favorite Places, and so that was featured in there. Then the news articles, or the news outlets, caught hold of this. Fox News was like, wait a minute, Statue of Liberty can't be a man. But they all conceded, there's no proof that it was his mother. There's some thoughts that it was because the sculptor was originally modeling this off after or for or planning the statue for the Suez Canal, which was in Egypt. It was it's actually an Arab woman. So there's all sorts of theories about how this could be, but I wanted to bring it up because it's okay, so the Statue of Liberty, who we all view, this country views as this big beacon of hope and, America at its finest.
Is a man.
She's a man, baby.
She's a man.
So,
she's a man.
I don't know.
Well, Glenn Close's face was modeled after a man.
It was, I'll tell you that. Shit.
Of course,
she's more of a man
She's a very
than I am.
handsome woman.
The National Park Services says on their website officially they say it's believed to be modeled after his mother. But again, the word believed, no one knows. And if you look at the pictures, which I did, it's it actually does more resemble his brother than his mother.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah. So the Statue of Liberty.
Tranny.
A tranny? No, what? No, not a tranny. We don't know how she's describing. She's a crossdresser.
He's getting spankings right now.
All we know is she's a crossdresser. So. Or he's a crossdresser. He is a crossdresser. Yeah, I guess that. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I mean, I say that, like I said, I thought it was interesting. I was listening to a news program the other day, and they said that. I'm like, wait a minute. Have you guys heard?
It's but it's probably a mix of different people's faces.
Right.
Maybe, yeah.
But you guys had never heard that? I heard it a couple days ago, and then I saw the date came up.
It kind of makes you wonder why he chose, because in the 1800s, of course, men ruled the world. Especially if the original thought was Suez.
Still do.
Suez, yes, but original thought was Suez Canal. But then, especially America, why would he choose a woman?
Well, that's an interesting thought because when this piece that it might be a man came out, there were some arguments that the women's lib movement was like, hey, you guys are just trying to take another thing from us because apparently, to your point, most of the statues and such are modeled after men. And so you only have a few iconic statues, Statue of Liberty being one of them, that are modeled after women. And you're just trying to take one more thing away from us.
Well, maybe
women.
the Suez Canal was also going to be a drag queen, and her drag name was going to be Suez.
Next up to the stage, Suez. But I don't know. I mean, how?
And Labia Liberty.
What sort of flip of the script is that though? This big statue, like you said, that we are all oh, America, and now it's a man. It could be a man.
Well, it's another conspiracy theory. Abraham Lincoln is gay, which he's not. I know because he wouldn't sleep with me.
But there's got to be a lot of stuff that raises the question.
Right.
But the Statue of Liberty, right? So it got a lot of attention recently, right? I mean, not only has it been remodeled, but or there's a nice new museum there, which I may want to go visit. But it's this beacon of hope, right, for immigrants, and has been a lot is cited a lot in these discussions about immigration. So I don't know. What are your thoughts in terms of you had, what was it, Mulvaney or Perry? Who was the one who was well, no, it was a House rep who was talking about, well, maybe.
No, it was Ken Cuccinelli that
that's
said
right.
he literally said this. This is an immigration official in Trump's administration that said, well, the Statue of Liberty was really only meant Europeans.
Right. Well, there was what's the bald guy? Trump's bald
That's me.
advisor, the younger guy,
Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller. They were asking him about this, but doesn't the staff? There's a footage of Jim Acosta from CNN asking him, aren't these words true? Aren't we a country of immigrants and embrace this? He's like, well, you should know that this Stephen Miller is this poem by citing those words of "bring me your tired, bring me your poor," that wasn't released until the 1900s, well after the Statue of Liberty was already built. Little aha, but that poem. was actually written as part of the fundraising effort, so it was included in the fundraising pamphlet. So it was just later, like, finally transcribed on the statue. But again, I think this is a little, is no one knows the true story, like who this person was modeled after, but I do think it's an interesting story that's out there. Just recently, Out Magazine had an article about this online of the Statue of Liberty being modeled after a man. So I thought it was worth bringing up to the discussion, particularly since we hold the Statue of Liberty. Lady Liberty is so sacred.
She is a handsome woman.
And she might be a man.
Is she cute?
So go visit her. Go to New York City and visit her. So
research trip.
BBC.
So that was my little take on the Statue of Liberty.
You mean the News Network, right? It's the only BBC I know.
I was pleasantly surprised by that story, though, because I didn't know. I always just, again, as I mentioned at the start of it, I just thought it was a gift from the French, and really there was a lot of fundraising effort to it. So
we got Frenched.
Yes. So, all right. So that's it. Anything else, ladies, before we sign off here?
No, ma'am.
All right. Well. We got deep, we got serious, so that's good. We had some fun. So before
and we laughed at inappropriate times.
We did, which is
Tony.
We mean
Tony.
Just a reminder: next week,
giggles.
November the 5th, is Election Day, so go vote.
And you can early vote right now.
So do that. Make sure you go vote. All right, thank you for listening to our podcast and keep keying with us. A special thank you to Spencer for making all of this work for us.
And fact-checking tonight.
On the spot, PolitiFacts.
Right. You got 4 Pinocchios. And don't forget to subscribe so you can hear future episodes. You can visit our website at letstalkaboutgaystuff.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Let's Talk About Gay Stuff, and on Twitter at Talk Gay Stuff. Leave us a review and tell us what you think. We really do appreciate when you tell us what you think, good or bad. We enjoyed the feedback. Don't want it to be public? You can also drop us a line at letstalkaboutgaystuff@gmail.com. We haven't received any fun emails recently, so feel free to send us one.
Email,
just say
comment,
hi. Yeah, let us know. We get emails. Just we haven't received anything that was like whoa, which those are always fun. We did get one of those on Facebook a while back, like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Love it.
Homosexuality is a sin, he said. All right.
Sin is in.
That's why I stopped doing it.
Sin is in. That's why you stopped doing it. That's why you stopped doing it.
Yeah. That's my excuse.
But is he cute?
No, we looked him up. He was not that cute. No, sorry if he's listening.
No, I would have tried to change him back.
Maybe that's what he did. Maybe you're going to become a reformed Christian as well, and you won't talk to us anymore. You're like, homosexuality is a sin.
I already act on it. I may as well change my profile picture.
There you go. All right. Also,
ex-gay.
Spoopy season is here, so don't forget to listen to our sister podcast, our Spoopy podcast, which is available now. Woohoo! All right, so with that, we're here.
We're queer.
Get used to it.